Okay. Hello, everyone. Up to the next talk. We are having here Jesus M. Gonzalez Barahona, and the topic will be GrimoireLab, free software for software development analytics.
Thank you very much. Good morning. First of all, the slides should be uploading to the website, I think, or I hope right now. But just in case, I was tweeting about them just a moment ago, so go to Twitter if you want to have a link to the slides. And that may be important because a part of what I'm going to tell you now is how to run our software from scratch using Docker containers. So that if you happen to have a laptop with you, you can just run the software while I talk. And you have the exact data in the slide. So very quickly about me, I'm working in the university and in a company called Bitergia. And in both places, I'm basically working on software development analytics from different points of view. I've been working on this for a while, and at the beginning in the university and then also in the context of the company, we have been writing free software for doing this kind of analysis. And this is a presentation on the state of the art of the software that we have, which is called GrimoireLab. GrimoireLab right now is a part of a Linux Foundation initiative, which is called Chaos. In fact, it's a combination of Linux Foundation with other foundations, like Mozilla Foundation or the Eclipse Foundation, which are already in Chaos. And what we are trying to do is to find ways of doing analytics on free software. And a part of Chaos is doing that with free software itself, which is producing free software, as you can read there, producing free software for analyzing software development in general, but of course free software in particular. So the idea is to have our own staff for analyzing our own staff. And the software that I'm presenting today is GrimoireLab. GrimoireLab is the second generation of the software that we have been developing in the university and in the company. And it's a free software open project where anyone, of course, can participate. And the idea is to retrieve information from data sources, put into a database. Right now we are using ElasticSearch, but we could be using other databases, and then go and analyze the database. So that since you have all the data there, you don't need to go to the data sources, to the APIs of the different systems once and again. You can just retrieve everything from the database because what you have there is mainly a copy of the data that you have in the original data sources. When I'm talking about data sources, I'm talking about almost anything related to software development. We are right now supporting like 30 different data sources, from Git, GitHub, or Bacilla, or queried, to stuff like Slack, or IRC, or Telegram, or depending on how you are developing, it's very likely that all the channels that you are using to communicate with others, and all the things that we are automating, very likely we are covering them. So have a look at the data sources supported. I'm going to show them in a moment. And it is, again, go to those data sources, retrieve the information, put it into a database, and then try to figure out what the data is about. And for that, we are providing two main things. One is a dashboard, which is based in Kibana, and another one is a reporter, which is basically producing PDF reports with simple data, a kind of a summary of the project. And both things are customizable so that you can adapt it to your needs, if you want, in a relatively easy way. So this is let's say a screenshot of the dashboard. You can see the real thing here. This is for the OpenFB project, which is one of the projects for which we have a public dashboard deployed. If you look at it, it's just a visualization of the data in the database. On the top, you have some main metrics. In this case, this is the list of companies collaborating there. This is the list of people there. And this is the trends and the commits, authors, etc., for every period of time. In this case, it is months. So here you have Git, here you have queried, here you have mailing lists, here you have activity, and here you have people working in that repository. And for each of those data, you can drill down. You can click on everything, and if you are familiar with Kibana or other visualization systems of this kind, you can click on everything, and the dashboard is reconfiguring and showing you a filter, a drill down of the information you are presenting. On the left, in the real place, in the left you have a menu, and you can see more detailed panels for each of the data sources, so that you can drill down and you can find out the stuff like which one are the most relevant developers, and you can click on them and see their specific activity over time, or select a period of time and find out how they are committing or reviewing or whatever. So again, the idea is to visualize the information in the database. If you want to try it, and that's why having the slides handy may be useful, it's just like this. You need like 4 gigabytes of RAM in your laptop or wherever, and run the container. You need a lot of memory because the container includes ElasticSearch, MariaDB, and Kibana, and the software, GrimoireLab. And when it's run automatically like this, it is producing a demo of GrimoireLab itself. An important thing is you need connectivity, and if the connectivity breaks, very likely the container is not going to work because it's not designed to tolerate a lot of network failures. I'm saying because today maybe the network here is not that good for trying it, but have a try anyway, or try tomorrow. So in any case, once you run it, what you get is a container analyzing all the software, installing the data into the Elasticsearch database, and producing the kind of data that Kibana needs. If then you point your browser to this port in localhost, you can just access the Kibana instance, and you can look at the dashboard quite similar to the one I presented to you. The structure of GrimoireLab is like this. So it's in fact a set of components. It's written in Python, so everything here is Python, except for, of course, the databases and stuff, and Kibiter. Kibiter is our version of Kibana, which is very, very similar to Kibana. We try to track Kibana as much as possible, and we are only including in it the kind of stuff that we need very specifically for our dashboards. I will talk a bit about that later. But if you look at the general structure, usually you start here. These are the data sources. The kind of repositories where the information for the project you want to analyze are. All of that data, you use Percival, which is the component retrieving the data, for storing it into the database, which is these raw indexes that you can see here. Raw index means this is the raw index where all the raw information is. This tries to mimic as much as possible the information that we have in the original data sources. In the middle, you can use Arthur if you want. And Arthur is basically a machine for doing this in the large, because this is designed for working with thousands of repositories if needed. So Arthur is basically continuously going to repositories and updating the information. Continuously, of course, means try to be friendly to the APIs. Maybe it's just waiting for 10 minutes and I come back to see if there is something new and stuff like that. But basically here you can configure how do you interact with the different repositories and how do you think in parallel. You can run it in different nodes if your project is really huge and you need very many nodes for downloading the data, etc. And as I said, Percival is the part related to how to get information out of here. And one of the interesting things of Percival is that it provides a common API for all the different data sources, which is basically a Python generator. And after my talk, there is specifically a talk on Percival. So if you are interested in how we retrieve the data and so on, please stay for the next talk. Once we have the data here in Elasticsearch, we use GrimoireLab for doing two things. One is dealing with identities, because developers may use many different identities in different places, and we would want to track persons as much as possible, not identities. So you can optionally use sorting hat, which is on the top. Sorting hat is trying to find out the different identities of the same person. For that is using some heuristics and some information that you can configure. If you are analyzing your own project and you know the different identity for your developers, you can write a very simple YAML file and put the identities there so that sorting hat uses those for identifying the same person across different data sources, for instance. And you can also do things like defining how you want the persons to be named, affiliation for the person, for which company they work, and stuff like that. And GrimoireLab uses that information and some computing for doing the enriched indexes. The enriched indexes are the ones that have like a summary of the information that we have in the raw indexes, and that summary is specifically designed for the analytics. That's where we are, for instance, annotating every commit with the company for the person doing the commit, so that later on you can query on that very easily if you want. So again, GrimoireLab uses the data from identities and produces the enriched indexes, which are a summary of the raw indexes. And the enriched indexes can be used, of course, directly if you want. You can just connect the pandas notebook, for instance, here, and do queries directly in Python and put that into a pandas data frame and do everything of stuff with it if you want. But you can also just connect it to Kibiter, which is the dashboard, and you have a nice visualization of all your data. Or you can connect it to manuscripts, which is producing PDF documents with a summary of the project itself. So the idea is that once you have the information in the database, you can exploit it in many different ways. And on the top right, you have Moderate. Moderate is taking care of orchestrating all of this. Moderate is the single tool that can run everything if you want. Of course, you can run everything, every tool by itself, but you can also run everything together, which is usually what you do when you are analyzing the project for the first time. And that's what the container does, the container that I presented to you a moment ago does. So I'm going to go very quickly through extraction because we have the next talk on Percival. We have a lot of data sources. And as I said, Percival is taking care of providing a common API in Python for all of them. And also have a command line, which is quite simple and basically produces a JSON document for each of the items here. An item can be a commit, or can be a ticket, or can be a message in the Slack. And in all the cases, it's a JSON document with different components, of course. This is the way you can use Percival. Just install it. And then this way, you get this Git repository analyze it. Or this way, you get this GitHub repository analyze it. In the case of using GitHub, you better include a token. You know that GitHub can provide you these tokens via the user interface to be able of accessing the API quicker. If you are not using it, you can do like 50 queries an hour or something like that. If you are using the token, you can use like 5,000 queries an hour or something like that. So if you use Percival with GitHub, use the token. And this is how do you do it in Python, which is, as you can see, quite simple. On the top, you have the import of the package. Then you have the two data that we are going to use. In this case, it is a Git repository. This is where we are going to clone the Git repository. And here you have the creation of the object for doing the stuff, and then just iterator on fetch, which is the Python generator that we are producing. And it's always the same, so that you have the data as Python dictionaries, which are very convenient to use to fit the pandas wherever. This is the architecture for enrichment that I already mentioned, where we are dealing with identities, raw indexes, and stuff. And this is an example of how to run that. For that, you can use another script, which is P2O, which is basically doing the conversion of the raw index to the enriched index. And at the same time, it's already calling Percival, so that you have the complete process from data source to enriched index. In this case, this command, for instance, assumes that you already have Elasticsearch deployed. This is an example of the information that GrimoireLab is producing. So this is for a commit, and there's much more information down here, but you can get the idea. So it's just a simple JSON document where you have some information related to Elasticsearch, which is on the top, and then some fields, which are the information that we are extracting from the data sources. And since it's just a JSON document, or in Python, a Python dictionary, it's very easy to work with. Because of it already has the structure of a table, you can directly import this into a pandas data frame to do things with it, for instance, if you want. And this is a summary of the architecture for exploitation. Everything is into the Elasticsearch database, so you can directly connect Python or anything else to it and exploit the information that way. You can also connect here to other tools. And by default, let's say we have these two ways. Remember Kibiter, which is Kibana, and producing directly PDF stuff. But for instance, some people have been connecting Grafana here instead of Kibana, and it works as well. So there is no problem in connecting any other thing to the database. And this is the way for producing a dashboard from the command line, if you just use the Python packages directly. But instead of this, I think that it is better that you try this one, which is, again, the same that I showed you at the beginning, using the Docker container. Have a look at the other one. If you do that, remember that then you point your browser here, and you have a lot of information about GrimoireLab in the website, or go directly to the tutorial, where you have a section on installation and everything, and how to produce a simple dashboard from scratch. And that's it. Thank you very much. I think we still have some time for one question, comment, insult, wherever. Yes, please.
About Arthur, you say it grabs some data each time. Do you deal with like webhooks to avoid grabbing data from a Git repository that not so much activity, but when they have it, just a webhook to say it?
Not by default, but you could do that. And it's basically a matter of connecting, let's say, a collector of those webhooks and letting the Arthur go to the collector instead of the original data source. And we don't do that because Arthur assumes there is no specific relationship with the repository, including maybe I cannot set up a webhook. But if you can, the only thing that you need to do is to put the webhook pointing to some collector and then letting Arthur go to the collector instead of the original data source. Right? Okay, thank you very much.